We have begun the beginning.
Well, do
We're
the
beginning to
editing.
begin.
Start the game already!
Well, I think we're getting technically better,
Or something.
or something.
Hey, you've got an interesting note here. Roll the dice.
Well, okay. So here's what happened: is that I sent my wife out to buy some alcohol for me, and my wife doesn't drink, which I think I've mentioned before, and you know that.
Mhm.
So she came back with some of this Appleton Estate Signature Jamaican rum, some of this Jameson Irish whiskey, and some of this Jack Daniel's Tennessee Sour Mash whiskey. So I have all three of these things, none of which have been opened yet. So I thought I would leave it to you to decide what I start with.
Okay.
So you can roll the dice or you can just pick one. Oh,
I have a 3D printed experimental giant heavy ass D20 here. So let's do 1 to 6, the Jack Daniels, 7 to 12, the Jameson, 13 to, what's it going to be? 18, the Appleton Estates, 19 or 20, you mix all three with cola.
oh, I'm not entirely certain that I want to ruin any of these with that.
This is going to sound great. 9.
So Jameson.
Jameson it is.
All
On
right.
ice with double
Ice.
asterisks.
Yes, because it's not actually ice. They're little metal balls that you put in the freezer, and they're
All
not
right.
they're not just hunks of stainless steel. They're actually they've got some kind of expansion dads inside. Science. So what have you
Well,
got
I'm a little
today?
bit boring. I've got Broadhead Amber Ale.
Well, oh my God, an ale.
Yeah, I bought
Winter is coming.
mostly miscellaneous. Yeah, I got a couple of ciders. I went shopping yesterday actually to get some stuff and just grabbed an assortment. That's not too bad.
Mm,
It's pretty mellow.
I feel like a grown up.
So
I
it's
mean,
been a hot minute.
it's been a while. What, 2 weeks now? Yeah. So some stuff has happened. I started playing Baldur's Gate with a group of people. Um, one of whom has not played before, and two others who have played a little bit of Act 1, and one person has been halfway through Act 2, and of course I've been through Act 1 37 times. So it is just as much chaos as you would imagine. Um, yeah. So it's fun, but it's a very, very different game when you're playing in a group where basically like quests. What quests? I don't know, punch a goblin or whatever. And I
Yeah, my buddy
experienced.
Paul at work is with his second group playing through now. He's playing through just 2 people this time, and it's going a lot more smoothly. I think he had a full 4.
It can work, but you really have to coordinate and do teamwork, right? It's got to
Mm-hmm.
be. I'm going to talk to this person. Okay, everybody else stop what you're doing, and now we're involved in that. Or or you go and talk to them, and you get the quest, and you do the thing, and then you let us know what that was, and we'll all work on it together. It's almost like tabletop gaming, but we're playing it very much like a video game. So again, it's fun. It's just I feel sorry for the person who's it's their first time through because they're like, what's happening? Where are we going? Why are we going over there? What's happening over there? What are you doing? Where are you even? Right? I mean, the quest says we're supposed to go talk to this person. I'm talking to that person. Where are the rest of you? Oh, we're over here killing this thing and looking under this rock where we discovered a secret in the 75 times we played through. So, and I experienced my first bug that was annoying enough to make me go, I would like to actually reload for this, please. I tried to cast. There's the harpies on the beach, right?
Mm-hmm.
I was like, okay, it's been damaged enough that I can cast sleep, so it'll stop, like singing its song, but I can't see it because I'm standing up high. So I took 2 steps and I fell into the rock. I can't move, I can't cast, I can't do anything, I can't teleport, I can't misty step, because I can't see anything, right? I'm inside the
Hmm.
geometry. And I'm like, all right, well, I'm out of this combat. It's my turn, end turn, my turn, end turn, my turn, end turn, until the end. And then it's like, go to camp, come back, and now I'm sitting on top of the rock again. So I was trying to think to myself, like that. I mean, it's very rare. Obviously, I've played like 100 and some odd hours of this game. It's the first time it's happened. I was trying to think to myself, like, if I was going to try and fix this in a way that couldn't be exploited, like, what would I do? Right. And I think I would have a sort of like once per short rest, minimum teleport button where basically um, you're like you teleport to the nearest occupiable pixel, like whatever
Yeah.
that happens to be.
Like lots of games have an unstock
Yeah.
feature.
Or rewind or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that would make sense. Or back me up like
Hmm.
5 feet from my current position and give me my movement back.
Yeah. I mean, with a game like this, you're quick saving often enough that it's probably less important that the feature is there. But
Yes. For
so
most.
speaking of frustrating Baldur's Gate multiplayer, I guess
Yes.
we might as well just come right out and say it. We are kind of announcing we're going to be doing a bit of game streaming, and streaming can be in quotation marks here. The reality is we're probably going to do like live to tape for the first couple of days. We are going to be starting a 2-player, no companion tactician run of Baldur's Gate 3.
Come and watch. See how bad we are.
So for those of you who listen to us in podcast format, the YouTube channel, Nerding Under the Influence. I don't know when we're going to start it. Probably sometime next week by the time this airs.
Yeah.
But it'll be at some point
Soonish.
in the next week to 10 days-ish. It's not going to be a, hey, we're streaming 3 or 4 days a week kind of thing. Like this will probably be a once a week.
Oh.
We'll see how it goes type things. This is going to be like the anti-game streamer game stream. It's not going to be fancy. It's going to be 2 old fat white dudes playing video games badly.
That sounds like the name of a good YouTube channel.
None of us will be in a hot tub or a kiddie pool. None of us will be wearing particularly outrageous cosplay.
Ooh, I'll have to see if I can find my wizard hat.
You'd pull off a mean Gandalf now.
I'm getting there. I mean, winter is coming, but this is like 6 months of beard growth now. So it's slowing down significantly. I think I'm almost to the point where my beard is going to stop growing, which is okay. I'm fine with that. I was hoping to get it long enough that I could put little braids in it, but I don't know if it's going to get there.
Yeah, I got through about 2 weeks of beard growth, and I was like, nah, I can't do this.
I'll
and
tell
I
you
was
what.
getting ready to shave it all off, and Tanya was like, well, you should leave the mustache. It's Movember. Well,
Yeah, it's fine.
whatever.
I have discovered in the few times that I've tried to grow my beard out that there are 3 or 4 sort of almost week-long periods where you're like, oh, this has got to come off. Right? There's the first little bit, which is fine. It's a little bit scratchy, and then it gets like, oh my god, this itches like crazy. And then you get to a certain point where it's like it's long enough that how do you control this and how do you trim it and how do you shape it? And then eventually it gets to the point where it's like it's long enough, no one's really going to notice because there's a bird's nest in it anyway.
Yeah. I just don't have a beard growing face, you know? It's first of all, I just native DNA probably. I don't have density of hair follicles, so like what comes in really long, but it's sparse enough that it isn't full. It'll never get full. Which is problem number 1. Problem 2, I've got like fat neck, so where do you trim it here?
You don't.
Unless it, well, But I'll never have a full enough beard that it wouldn't just look like shitty neck beard,
Well,
right?
I mean, listen, you have a podcast on the internet. You're allowed to grow a neck beard now.
Okay.
I I had this
You raise a valid point.
I had this idea at one point, and I gave it up as a bad idea. But the idea was is that I was because I last year I grew, or when sort of the stay at home thing for COVID happened, I stopped shaving because I thought, like, this is the time that I can do this and see, like, how bad is it going to be without embarrassing myself. And when it came time to shave it off, which was the day after they took my ID photo at work, I thought to myself, would it be funny if like shaved off everything except the stuff below my chin and left like everything on my neck, and put on a fedora and pose with a sword in my backyard? And then I thought, no, that's actually just kind of lame, so I didn't do it. But I
Yeah.
thought it would be a funny picture.
I thought about taking what I had off in pieces, like just leaving the mutton chops.
You could
Would
pull
have been
off mutton
fantastic.
chops. Yeah.
You know what? I actually did it in high school once. I was in a musical. We did Oliver.
Hmm?
And I was cast in multiple roles, but I was playing, my primary role was Mr. Bumble, who's the sort of workhouse beetle. And I grew like Civil War authentic, because this is about the only part of my facial hair that ever grows like nicely. And I get these empty spots here. I had these mutton chops sticking out. It was fantastic. It was horrible. Like, it was terrible. I loved it.
There's something a little bit freeing about being able to just go, you know what? Fuck it. I mean, some people are not going to like it, and I don't care.
Well, yeah, I was like 16, 17. I mean, whatever.
Oh
I don't
man.
think anybody cares at that point.
I cared a lot. I cared too much. But I couldn't, in 16, 17, I couldn't grow facial hair. Like I was in my 30s before a reasonable, sort of anything came out. And now that I'm nearly 50. Let's do the math. Carry the three. Yeah, late 40s, almost 50. Like
And I think
now
I'm growing facial hair at about the same rate I was at like 13.
oh, I can still, I mean, even when I was like at work and you must be clean shaven, I could get away with like twice a week. I would shave sort of Monday morning, and I would shave again Wednesday morning, and I would have a bit of stubble on Friday morning.
Yeah, it's about what I do now.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I like the fact that beards have come back. I do keep my mustache trimmed because when I grew it out during COVID, I just let it all grow. And I understand now why, during the great mustache period of the 18th century, they had like special spoons and the wax to keep stuff in place and all of that. Because, man, I'll tell you what, it collects food and soup. It's
Even
nuts.
this, even this, I'm like, oh man.
Yeah.
I had to like wash my face and like use shampoo almost after I eat.
Yeah.
And I'm not really a messy eater, but
Just gets, yeah, it's like it picks it up. Like, why? Who was in charge of our evolutionary path? Whoever they were, they're an idiot. Yeah.
I'm sure it had a purpose that we're not thinking of. But
Yeah, who knows? It does keep my face warm. I have
oh,
snow on the ground now, and it is here to stay. All right, so we should talk about Baldur's Gate 3 and what we're going to do and how it's going to work, I guess, or something.
I mean, for the most part, we're probably just going to be making it up as we go along. The intention is 2 players, no companions, tactician. And I haven't actually played tactician as of yet. I think we probably need to establish some ground rules, though.
Yes.
I see one of the questions you have here is like no saves coming. And I think realistically, like, we're going to have to set rules for.
When do we reload?
Yeah. Like, one
This
thing
is,
I don't want to do is have this feel like unfun. So
yes.
if you get into a combat situation where you're just hosed by your position, right? Like, there's no point in spending multiple hours trying to get through that situation and make for the most of it. Let's roll back. Let's approach it more tactically. But I would like to respect the dice rolls, if
Yes.
anything.
Yeah, and that's really what I'm talking about. Like if we get to a point, I would like to, in the situation where it looks like we're not going to be able to do this combat, I would like to do like 3 or 4 rounds and just
Hmm.
see. And if it turns, because today actually I'm on uh I sent a screenshot. I don't know if you see the ones that pop up on Steam. It's labeled nice, and I think you'll see why. But I got to the point where I was at the where you first meet the Githyanki at the bridge.
Hmm.
And you go past along the upper road, and the guy flies down in the dragon, blah blah blah.
Hmm.
And combat initiates there, and I literally did not get to make a move. Rolled for initiative. The fighter on their side went. Two of them went first. One of them was a rogue or something who basically went, I poisoned my arrow and missed everybody. And I hide in the corner. And then their warrior went 2 attacks, killed me, action surge, killed another person, popped a potion, killed the third person, and Astarion was hiding in the bushes. And it's like, well, what's he gonna do? He's gonna pop out and just die, right? So it's like, yeah, go level up some before I come back here. I need to be able to survive 1 round of combat. In that
Hmm.
situation, we reload. It's like, hey,
Hmm.
yeah, one of us is still alive with 1 hit point, but this is not recoverable.
Yeah.
But we failed the perception check. So be it. Carry on.
Hmm. Yeah, or persuasions, or any of that type of stuff. I mean,
Use inspiration, but
yeah,
not reload.
and I think what we may want to do. I know that there are people that are actually doing like solo tactician runs.
Yes.
Neither one of us are probably good enough to really make that work, and
Not
I don't.
interested in the homework
You
that it
know,
would take to
I
make
like.
that work.
Yeah, I like a challenge. I'm not really a masochist, so
Hmm. Yeah.
that would get to the point, I think, very quickly where it's not fun, or I'm having to resort to cheesing everything. And there's going to be some stuff we'll probably have to cheese.
Yes, we'll have to approach some things stealthily, I think. I do
Hmm.
think that we're probably going to have to talk about covering our bases, because with only 2 classes, right, like there's going to be some skill gaps. Um,
Hmm.
we're probably going to have to be a little bit combat focused, because otherwise we're just going to get stuck in the combats.
It's going to be, I suspect, like we'll probably respec a ton once you
Yeah.
got enough wiggle room to make certain things more viable.
Yes.
Did you have anything that you were kind of rolling around in the top of your head as being maybe things you
I
would like to look at?
yeah, kind of. I haven't played a druid yet at all, so I was thinking about that. But I'm open to pretty much anything. Do you have anything that is tickling your fancy for an idea?
Um, I know there's some things that are they're probably go-to builds, and I haven't really researched it a ton, but there's some obvious things that jump out to me as being pretty interesting. Um, Berserker Barbarian Circle of the Moon Druid as a multi-class, because your Barbarian Rage you can hit, then
And
drop into Bear or Owl Bear, and you've essentially got 2 HP pools then.
yeah,
And I think there is and I didn't get it in my first game, but a legendary 2-hand sword available in Act 1, the Githyanki. So if you went Gith as a race, that would need to be balanced against something else. And the something else could be going like Assassin Road Gloomstalker Ranger as a multi-class kind of thing. Probably start off Rogue for that one, but that would be one that would probably respec a couple of times. Um, I guess it'll depend on what our little social contract is about how we're going to handle like combat and pace of combat. Like, do we want to try and take on a group and get through it, or do we want to pick away at the edges as best we can? If it's our intention to jump into hiding and stealth and whatnot, invisibility, then maybe sort of the assassin gloomstalker makes sense. And have you looked at the Dark Urge stuff at all?
no. I While I was waiting the other day for our group game to start, I loaded up the Dark Urge, and I did notice that the opening text crawl is different.
Hmm.
Because it's like, oh, my head, except like Dark Urge has dialogue.
Mm-hmm. No, I haven't looked at it at all. Haven't played it. But my understanding is there is some perks for going Dark Urge, and one of them is a pretty decent in combat invisibility.
Oh,
I don't know if it has to do with like after killing something in combat, you can do
disappear.
something,
Yeah.
a cloak of some sort. So that's only going to work if strategically, like that's how we're handling combat, both of us. If one of us is going to be wanting to just get in there and
That's
I don't know how
dangerous.
well that is dangerous. I wouldn't think it would be the way to go for a solo tactician run,
No.
but it might be feasible depending on what the
Yeah.
complement is between
Yes.
our builds. You know,
I think if you were going to do that, you'd almost want to go. Oh, what's the animal thing? Berserker, barbarian thing. It's not berserker. It's the other one.
oh
Uh,
the
Pure heart or whatever it is.
yeah
You'd want to do that and go bear, which has resistance to all damage except psychic.
hmm
And then you'd want the other person to be like heavy spec into
yeah, and I don't know how
that won't work well. You just don't have enough damage output. I think you
well, and
need to
there's just
have
not enough healing availability to make
no, there isn't.
that sort of tank healer thing even a viable sort of
Nope.
situation. I don't know, and I don't know that there's enough crowd control even in the game to make.
There is. You could. I think you could. Here's an odd thing is I think you could make two wizards work
Mhm.
because hypnotic pattern is way overpowered.
Yeah,
Um, so you
and I
could
thought like a Sorcelock might be an interesting way to go too.
yep.
Um,
You need something that has a sort of medium amount of survivability, a lot of damage output, and a minimum amount. I can heal myself a bit.
yeah. The other
Uh,
thing that might be interesting is like a paladin
mhm.
slash like Pact of the Blade warlock where you can warlock where you can really push into charisma.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Paladins are neat.
I honestly think, and I don't know this for sure, so I might be wrong because having played through the game at regular difficulty, I think the first like Act One, the first half of Act One might be the most difficult part of doing this.
The Goblin Fort is really tough, especially if you try and fight your way out at the end.
Hmm.
If you fight your way in from the outside, I think it could probably be okay. Because inside the Goblin Fort's not a big deal. You can chunk that up into small pieces.
Hmm.
But yeah, honestly, my very first attempt at tactician, I died to um, the brain things. What the heck are they called again? I always forget. Us and his friends. Uh,
Like the illithids at the beginning.
no, like after you crash, you go to
Yes.
walk through the ruined ship, and there's like three brains there, brains with legs.
Oh
Um,
yeah, yeah, yeah. The
thought devourers, whatever they're called.
yeah,
Um,
intellect devourers.
intellect devourers.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, my very first tactician run, actually, I died right there in one round. They went bang, 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 and down I went. And then it was, because I had Shadowheart at that point, and she went and tried to heal me, and then bang, 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 and she went down. It's tough. You have to be strategic, I think. And you're right, because the first bit, like up until level 5, once you hit level 5, it becomes a whole bunch easier because you have options. But up until that point, you kind of have to go, all right, find a way to split people up.
Yeah.
Try and take them on all at once. They're just going to overwhelm you. Sleep is going to be a big spell in the beginning.
Yeah, I'm excited to see where it goes. Now, this streaming thing isn't just going to be about Baldur's Gate 3. That's the first thing that we're doing. I have some ideas for other things that I would like to do with it. I mean, there's a lot of games. We talked about doing the retro thing, and I think that Just a few obvious games that come to my head. Some that are like, hey, we've never done this. Let's do it and really, focus on playing in the game. And then there's going to be other games that, yeah, we're playing the game and it's just kind of background filler while we're shooting the shit or talking about something else. What ideas did you have?
Well, the big one is Ghost Recon, right? It's the granddaddy of LAN party games. It's a little bit
For
ugly
us,
yeah.
everybody else that I talked to that did LAN parties back in the day, nobody ever played that game.
No? Oh, that's funny.
No.
Well, a lot of people prefer antagonistic games, like games where they're playing each other, right? And I
Hmm.
enjoyed Ghost Recon because of the co-op element. I like I like cooperating versus competing. Some of it is because competitions just end up being losses for me, but some of it is just because it's just so much more fun to work together with your friends than it is to work against them.
Hmm.
Battle
Age of
chess would be
Empires
fun.
2. Yeah. Age of Empires 2 would be another one that would be interesting to go to. Honestly, some of my most fun moments playing that game were not the LAN party, um, like competitive, but the you and I killing time. So the original Age of Empires 2, Age of Kings.
Mhm.
The way the difficulty worked is that it wasn't really like, it wasn't true difficulty so much as just everything for the enemy AI happens so much more quickly. So we would put ourselves in like a no rush situation on a map that we would build ourselves. And two of us would build up and we'd go against three AI and try and survive and deal with them, right? Like, because it was a challenge. Now, I don't know if it would be the same with Age of Empires 2 Definitive Edition, but I noticed that they, since launch, have introduced some co op campaigns.
Oh, yeah, that would be interesting to do.
Yeah. So I have no idea what they're like. I don't know. I didn't do a lot of campaign stuff in Age of Empires because it was a style of gameplay that was sort of different than what I really enjoyed playing. That sort of quick build up rush style, or that quick sort of objective kind of style stuff that is admittedly the best way to play the game if you want to be good. But
Yeah, I'm finding as I get older that I don't enjoy rushing anything anymore.
yeah,
I'd rather walk down the hill.
the the place I would like to eventually get is doing some real retro shit. Now I know you haven't played a lot of console games, period, back in the day, right?
I mean, some Super Mario Brothers really badly.
Yeah. I would like to tackle things like Chrono Trigger, Final Fantasy VI, some of the greatest games of all time that I think you've never seen.
Never seen most of for sure.
Now, they're not multiplayer games per se. They're not co-op games. There are some games of that ilk, like Secret of Mana and Secret of Evermore, that do have multiplayer modes. But I think I would be quite happy to sit in the sidecar and watch you play those and just sort of talk through the experience, or vice versa. We can do that thing where we hand off the controller. I remember growing up loving those games, and that's typically how I played. A buddy of mine who was really into the same JRPGs that I was in, like, we would rent a game system and we would rent the game, do it in like 72 hours, like 3 days over the weekend, not sleeping. And it's just like, okay, you play for a while, hand off the controller and just experience the game. Two people playing a single player game. And given that you've not played any of those, it'd be interesting to see, as an old man in 2023,
Hmm.
how well they hold up.
I imagine that some of the stories will still be interesting. The some of the as a visual spectacle to film and put out as entertainment for other people, that's probably going to be terrible. Let's do it.
Yeah. And that it's probably worth saying for those of you that are thinking about tuning into this stream that we're not doing this to be successful streamers.
Oh God.
This
No.
is just an extension of us just having an excuse to hang out and maybe shoot the shit with a few of you while we're doing it. But we're not doing this as a product. We're not going to be
What?
playing what the cool kids are playing. If you're looking at like Twitch and you're looking at the popular games, we're not going to be in any of those.
Oh.
We're probably going to be playing shit you either haven't heard of or weren't born yet when they came out.
That's true. The number of people in our age bracket who are watching or listening to podcasts is probably reasonably small. I could be convinced to get into a hot tub. I'm not sure if it would, raise our viewership or tank it.
If there's anything that I've learned is that there's someone out there that's into it.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter what it is. There's an audience for it. Might not be a big audience, but there'll be a passionate audience. Yeah.
Because Rule 34 is the other one. Is this Rule 35?
I don't know.
Or is this just like Rule 34B?
Yeah, it's just the opposite direction, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm excited to start any and or all of that. I think it's a great idea.
Another thing I'd like to do down the road, and this probably requires of a bit of an audience for it to be worthwhile, and this is transitions us into the next segment, is I think it would be interesting and fun just to do some DM prep, like Q&A sessions, just honestly, like if it gives me the excuse to sit down at a computer and think about what I want to do for my D&D groups that I run and put the time in to do a little bit of prep, whether it's just thinking about what I want to do, mapping things out, whether it's just sitting in Foundry or whatever VTT I'm using and doing some work in there, or maybe even prepping a mini campaign that I'm going to run in the future as a group. I think that would be interesting for me anyway.
There's almost certainly an audience out there for that. I was thinking about this the other day because I'm setting up for what we're going to segue into here in a minute, and I was looking at my map making software, and I'm like, there's one more module that I'd like to have for that, and I have spousal permission to purchase it. So, yeah, it's a $40 purchase. Listen, Christmas is coming up. The budget gets a little tight around this time of year. So,
Something that might be on sale in a week.
it's possible. There's a Humble Bundle going on right now that looks really, really nice.
I almost sent it to you, and then I realized, you know what? He's pinching pennies here. He just bought a house. I don't want to say you get irked, but you pretend to get irked when I send you stuff like that because it's like, oh, I want to buy that.
I do. I looked at it. They do have
Yep.
a few things on sale, and they have a couple of their bundles on sale. The problem is that like I have a bunch of stuff already, and I literally just need like one more add-on. I did find too. There's a shareware bundle out there with 10,000 symbols in it that are usable in photographer. So I was going to start downloading it, then I realized, oh wait, no, we're actually recording this afternoon. I shouldn't be using my internet for that. So I'll send you a link to it if you're interested. It looks pretty cool. I have no idea. We'll see.
Cut out a little bit there.
The internet, there's clouds. So
Yeah. All right. Well, let's actually get into Table Talk officially. I'm excited.
Me too.
Why are you excited?
Well, my excitement is actually, this is sort of special for me because my excitement has actually lasted more than the few days of going back and forth and saying we should do a thing. We are starting up our Dungeons and Dragons group again tomorrow. Tomorrow?
Mhm.
I lose track of the days of the week. So we're having our session 0 for the whole new thing tomorrow at 2:00 ish. And I'll be proposing some things that some people are probably not going to like for a short period of trying things out, and
Yeah,
we'll
it's fun.
see. we'll see how it goes. I mean, it might
Before
just.
we get into our group, though, you've
Uh-oh.
also started playing with another group already, have you not?
I haven't. No.
Oh,
No.
I thought you'd kick things off with them already.
Nope. They're no. That's I'm starting an in-person group, but I want to get us up and running off the ground first.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
Part of the reason is that I need to flesh things out a little bit more for sort of in person. I'm also going to be doing my own sort of system with that group, I hope. So I need to flesh that out a little bit more too. Because it's mostly there. I think there's probably there's going to be some balance issues, obviously, and there's going to be a few places where I haven't thought of things that people want to do. Might be a thing
Are
for
you
you
going to
and
be
I to
recording
brainstorm.
sessions with that group?
Probably not. I'll ask them. I'll see if they want to. But if we do, it'll be sort of like one microphone and you know sub critical role season 1 quality. So
Yeah, and that's fine for that kind of thing. I'm not suggesting you publish it. I'm just interested in maybe checking it out myself. Because I know
I'll
that you've been talking about getting back into like doing 3D printed sort of dungeon tiles and stuff like that too. So
that's the hope. Whether or not I actually get to that, it's like you get to the end of a day and think, "Ooh, I have lots of time to do this," and then it's like, "Oh, wait, that's tomorrow. Yeah, I don't have time to do this anymore." So make a sketch on a piece of paper. I'm thinking I might, because I'll be doing it in the room that our TV is in. I might actually load up Roll20 and just control it from my computer and say, like, "There's you. Where do you want to go? Like up, down, left, right. How many to do what?" Just so that we have a something to look at for combat.
nice, nice.
Yeah, I'd love to do 3D printed stuff, but it's just time.
Yeah. Not a, and I know, I mean, you like 3D printing specifically, not a parting gift, but if you haven't watched, and I would suggest going back and looking like it is old stuff, there's a Canadian dude out of the Winnipeg area, runs a channel called Black Magic Craft. And he does some 3D printing stuff, but like he really started out cutting his teeth on terrain and stuff using like the pink XPS foam,
Yep.
like a little bit more crafty stuff. And I actually like that, the way it comes out,
Yes.
a lot more than the 3D printed stuff. It's a lot easier. I think it's a little more reasonable to
Oh, entry
crank out
level.
in terms of
Yeah.
throughput. Well,
Yes.
entry level, yes, but also in terms of like I need a lot of this stuff and maybe I'm only going to use it a few times and then I'm going to turn it over and use different stuff for or whatever. Like the investment of time and money
Yes.
to do it 3D printing, that's great for minis and stuff like that. But like for basic terrain stuff, this guy like even gets really cheaper. Like the amount of stuff that he can make out of cereal boxes
Oh yeah.
is
I
pretty
have
impressive with dollar store paintbrushes and paint. Like,
the group that I'm playing Baldur's Gate with right now. A couple of them are, and the people that I was playing with in my Sunday group, a couple of them are big into Warhammer and those kind of games, right? Like
mm,
tabletop simulation type stuff. And they do a lot of terrain, and some of it is just unbelievably good. And it's all sort of hand done. Now they do a little bit of sort of laser cutting to get some forms of stuff done, but then they'll like, stick bits of fake moss on it, and they get stuff, the green stuff that you use for plants that you get from
mhm.
the forest. They'll do a bunch of stuff with that. You can make just about anything that you can think of, and it's like, wow, that looks like a hillside with trees on it.
It's kind of funny how full circle some things have come. And I know that that level of wargaming always existed, but it was more traditional wargaming than it was even the fantasy sci-fi, like 40K style gaming that people do now. But I remember as a kid growing up, spending time with my dad doing model train stuff.
Hmm?
And really, the stuff that we were doing is exactly what a lot of the people that are into train stuff now, more than just like modular tile systems and stuff, but the people that are building these big sets to do skirmish games and wargaming on are doing. Now, that foray into model train building was not something I would have ever told anybody at school, even my nerdiest friends at the time, that I was doing.
Yeah, because it's just not cool.
And now, admittedly, most people don't look at it as cool, but my nerdy friends would.
Yeah, because it's neat. I mean, it's a skill, right? It
Mm-hmm.
involves a great deal of creativity and craftiness that deserves respect. The unfortunate thing is a lot of people who get into that, like I don't know if you've ever been into the game store, Trenton, on a day when they're all playing. Like you walk through that room and it's like, oh, how many of you have showered today? Like there's double digits of you in here and single digits of you know what deodorant is. But that's
Yeah,
true
Tanya and I
of
have walked into, there's in Kingston, the Gamers Nexus place on Bagot Street. It's literally a basement under a building, and it's quite an interesting game store, but the back 2/3 of it are just dedicated to actual
tables.
play.
Yeah.
And it definitely attracts the older school. And I think the older school tends to fit that description of neckbeards and unwashed a lot more than
Yeah.
maybe the new blood that's been breathed into this pastime through
Yes.
things like Critical Role. And
It's changed, right? Because it has become less like, and I don't want to, sort of come down on those people because often it's because of, issues that are outside of their control, right? Social and otherwise. Um, so it's probably a good thing that like the average person is now spending is more able to actually do these kind of things.
Mhm.
Sort of lifts everybody up.
But there's definitely a type of person, and I do feel you got to kind of call them out on the fact that a lot of them choose to be the way they are.
Yeah.
Tanya and I, it's probably 2014, 2015-ish, got into playing Magic the Gathering for a while, and we were just mostly playing it like ourselves, building decks and stuff. And I got looking into Friday Night Magic and looked into some of the groups that were playing here in Belleville. Now, Belleville is not a big city. I mean, I think our population is like 50,000 now or something like that. And there aren't a lot of people that would be into, at least at this time, running Friday Night Magic. So there was a couple of little hot spots, and one of them was more of a general games store called Scallywag Toys. And popped in and saw the people playing Friday Night Magic, just how like it was a perpetual argument back there. Like the combination of that sort of rules lawyery kind of
Yep.
combativeness mixed with just people wanting to be antagonistic and start fights. It's just like, nope, never doing this.
I have a story along the same lines. Cindy and I started doing, and we did it once and haven't done it since, but we do want to keep doing it. Where one night a week, because as previously mentioned, we're pinching pennies a little bit, so we go into our local library and grab a movie, right? Because they have a reasonable selection of DVDs. We watched Cloud Atlas last time, right? Which I had actually, it was on my list of things to watch when it came out, and then it just fell off the list. And I thought, whatever, it probably wasn't that great. And neither of us had seen it. It was awesome. But the point of the story is that we went in there and there was a group of kids playing Dungeons and Dragons in the library. Libraries are not quiet zones anymore. They're now just like social gathering places.
Which,
and it was
that far is cool. Like,
yes.
that's great that there's kids
Yes.
socially in a public environment, not in their mom's basement,
Yep.
at a public library of all places playing D&D.
Yes.
All right. You may continue.
Now, it's a group of 7 or 8, and I'm not a good judge of kids. I don't have kids of my own. I've never been interested in having kids, so I'm not a good judge of age. But they were like early teens at the oldest, like probably older than 10, and probably all of them were under 15. So between 10 and 14. And there's like 7 or 8 of them. And the dungeon master was like the smallest and youngest person at the table. Right. And it was absolute and utter chaos. Like nothing was happening. And a bunch of them are new players as well, right? So they're doing that thing that we all do, right? When we're excited about something, and it's like I have a charisma of 16, so I can convince people to do stuff, and well, I have a strength of 18, so I can throw a barrel across the inn. It's like, where are you and what are you doing? Like, you actually having conversations, or are you just bragging about how awesome your character is? Right. And this, I mean, we were there for a half hour, 40 minutes looking at movies. And I'm just, the whole time I'm like, I can't even look at the titles on these DVDs because I'm laughing. Like all of these kids, with the exception of the Dungeon Master, are having a great deal of fun. Right. And it's wonderful to see. But at the same time, I have to think they would benefit from having a slightly older and slightly more experienced dungeon master who could say, okay, yes, your charisma is great. Sit down. It's not your turn. Yes, yes, you're very strong. You're over in the corner posing and showing off your muscles, and all the girls are very impressed. It's not your turn. Okay, now what do you do?
Though to be fair, except that it was a much smaller group, you've basically just described what my very first Dungeons and Dragons group was doing, except that we were like in school at recess, you know, 3 or 4 of us.
Oh. Yeah, I
And
mean,
that's kind of what it was like.
yeah, and that is what it's like. That's how you start, and that's how it goes. So, I mean, I wasn't laughing at them. I was just laughing with, nostalgia and the idea that,
Mm-hmm.
like, this is how it's supposed to start. This is how, and then, some people get a little bit more serious, and some people stay casual, and some people drift away. Um, you know, One of the things that I keep reflecting on, I think I've mentioned it before, is that our group um, is a unicorn in that I don't have to worry about balancing things, or I don't have to worry about like how munchkinny are people. I don't have to worry about people not having enough power, right, or too much, because everyone's just there to play the game, right? In playing Baldur's Gate with this group of people, and they're very nice people, and I like them, and they're all my friends. But oh my god, they're all fucking loot goblins, right? Like I'm walking along behind because there's somebody here who hasn't played the game before, so I want them to click on things and experience things, right? So I'm walking along behind, and every single chest, bag, box, um, fucking rock has been looted. Every body has been emptied, and it's like,
Oh
it,
my God, I'm playing EverQuest again. Like
yeah.
here, just let me start the DKP tables up because
And here's
here
the
we
thing,
go.
like I don't really
Don't care.
care,
I
right?
know.
Because I mean, it's not important. I'm playing a wizard, for goodness sake. I don't care. It's like if I need to memorize a scroll and I don't have gold, I'll just say, hey, I'd like to memorize a scroll. Can somebody shoot me 50 gold? And it'll happen. See, that's the thing, is that it's absolutely not a problem, because it's not that they're trying to hoard the stuff. It's that they want to get the stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And like our group doesn't do that. Right. I was just reflecting on this at the end of our session the other day.
Now, do you think it's because it's a video game? Like, would this same group, if they were playing at a table, would the approach be the same?
It would be similar, yes. I
Yeah.
have played Dungeons and Dragons with all of these people before, and it's definitely sort of a common thread.
Hmm.
It is a little bit exacerbated because it's a video game, right? And it's like I want to do things, I want to click on stuff. Because I have that impulse too. Like I do not leave myself out of the loot goblin accusation. Like I absolutely am. We're probably going to have a discussion about that when we play. Like, what do we do? Do we just pool all our loot? We need to figure it out, right? Because the
Yeah.
communication is the important part. But our Dungeons and Dragons group, like when it's like, hey, okay, so here's a chest and it's full of stuff. It's like, well, this would be most useful for you, and this would be most useful for you. Yeah, but you should have it because such and such, and I've already got this, and I'm going to be using that, so you should have this, right?
And I can say that it's happened more than a few times when you were DMing this group, and it certainly happened while I was DMing this group. Sometimes I would set up loot with a chest, and it's just like you say that the chest is there, and everybody's enjoying themselves doing anything else.
Yeah,
And you're getting ready to leave, and it's like, did you guys want to
like loot the
look at that
room.
chest? Or I guess
Yeah,
if you really want us to, we'll loot the room.
Yeah, because everybody is interested in the story and where do we go next and how do we actually accomplish our story goals, which is, I mean, it's different, right? Like
Yeah.
again, they're both perfectly valid ways to play, right? There's lots
And
of people.
My Tuesday group is quite similar, and I don't know if it's just because that's the way I run the games, but I got to the point with them where I actually stopped even worrying about loot, and I've rewarded them with items narratively more,
Yeah.
right? So they get the big, nice, shiny shit, the magic items, the OP stuff, more tied to the narrative and what they're doing rather than, well, here's the loot table and, you know,
And it matters more that way, right? It's tough to convince some people of that, but it makes more sense when it's, this is something that your character would appreciate, and you were rewarded this thing by doing something, as opposed to I beat the monster, I open the chest, I get the loot.
yeah, but there are other, and I would think of people that enjoy games like Diablo.
Yeah,
I mean, there are people that play D&D for the dungeon crawl, loot grind, loot
sure.
pinata style thing, and I'm not going to yuck their yum.
Yeah.
But our groups definitely have not
Yeah,
had
we
those
don't.
type of people in it.
Yeah, it's
All
different.
right. So getting back to our game then, what can you tell me and our listeners here without spoiling everything?
Well, okay, I can say that it is a homebrew world that, for us at least, we're going to play with the fifth edition system, which is going to be a little bit interesting because one of the sort of major foundational things about this world is that magic is socially taboo, and specifically illegal most places, because the world has been shattered. Everyone assumes that it's by delving too deeply to forbidden magics of the world. Everyone knows it exists. It's not like secret or anything, but um, it's just not done. Uh,
Now, you mentioned initially that you're just going to be having us play some pre-mades that you're assigning.
I'm changing that up a little bit.
Okay.
Basically, what I'm going to do is I'm going to assign a sort of archetypal personality that I'd like to see, and
Okay.
a class. Everybody's going to be human to start with for the first bit,
Hmm.
and then I'm going to send people away and say, make up your character. Here are your constraints. Otherwise, do your thing.
You're going to actually have us do character sheets in Roll20 then?
I think so. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
because I think that's probably where we're going to end up playing. And
So
it's
I'm going to assume with the human restriction, you're probably going to be restricting things like crazy subclasses and whatnot as well then?
well, after level 1, do what you want.
Okay.
Um, yeah, but it's basically it's going to be basic stuff to start. H thief stuff.
Okay.
Yeah. So the magic users will have a little bit of a delicate line to walk where just you don't do that stuff in town. We need to discuss a few things about, because I want you to start off as sort of, you're all from the same town, you're all friends, y'all know each other, right? Y'all sort of know each other's secret magic stuff. One of the things that sort of drew you together in town. Yeah, and then got to figure out how to suggest that you head off to adventure.
Well, I'm excited. I know that Tanya's excited to get back and playing.
Yeah, I think it'll be fun. I will see how the first couple of sessions go, but like I say, I want to run session 0 this week, where we'll talk about stuff and set things up and get people logged in and started. And then next week, I think we'll do, like, it's almost going to be like a one shot, maybe like
Mhm.
one, maybe 2 sessions, and we'll see how it rolls and see how you like your characters, and if you don't,
Did
switch them.
you end up, or are you going to pick up the Roll20 sub thing so that you can share your compendium? Because I know we kind of bought you most of the books.
I don't think that I need to have that to share the compendium. There's a limited number of games I can share the compendium. I think
Okay,
it's
I'm not sure what the plans are with them now. I haven't used Roll20
yeah.
in a while, but I was pretty sure you had to have like the base level plan to do any compendium sharing.
I thought you could share in like the single game for the DM. I think you have to. I know you have to be a subscriber if you want to share your compendium, not the game creator.
No, actually, that's a limit regardless. That's why we ended up having to buy you the books. Like a lot
Oh.
of the books that I picked up for you were books that I already had for myself while I was on a sub too. So
I'll have to look into that. If I need to, then yeah, I will.
okay.
But I thought that there was a certain like a limited number, and it was like you can share it in 2 games, and if you try and share it in a third one, it'll say you have to drop one of these. I don't have
Have
any
you
other
done a
games
bunch of
running.
prep work in Roll20
No,
yet? Like,
no.
if
So I
you
mean,
want, I could just spin up an empty Foundry thing for you and let you go, because then you can use my full character mancer stuff and whatever.
yeah, we could do that as well. I don't want to interfere because I know you can only have sort of one world running at a time, right?
Yeah.
We'll have to coordinate a little bit. Oh my God, we'll have to talk to each other.
It's all right. All right. Any other non-spoilery information you can share before we move on?
I don't think so. I don't think that there's much. I mean, like you know a little bit about it because
Mhm.
on creating the first little bit of the world together. But no, there's not much beyond like the starting town that I've even worked on. It will develop as we need to go there. That's the way my brain works is I make shit up as I go and hope it doesn't contradict. And if it does, we'll retcon stuff.
All right. I might need to bring Old Man Deck's voice back. No, I would not do that to my wife again.
I might just make that a stipulation of your character.
Well, way back in 19-2.
Stay a while and listen.
Yeah. So my group, I mentioned in our last session or maybe the episode before that my group had gone on a bit of a hiatus when we were doing a recap episode. And that I had some ideas for how to make that happen. I wanted to try some things. And for the most part, it went better than I thought it would go. Now, that whole thing that I was talking about, the ethics of taking memories and stuff, it ended up not mattering. Didn't really come up. As anticipated, a lot of like my players were willing to kind of roll with the punches. None of them tried to resist what was happening. But what we did do, just a quick recap, if those of you that are listening haven't listened to it before, yada, 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 made up gobbledygook about sort of psychic connections and memories. I'm doing sort of a homebrew take on the Raven Queen as a patron for one of my characters in this game that I'm playing. And they decided to try and explore her motivations by diving into this sort of psychic connection that she has with one of the players to try and figure out, is she good, is she evil, what does she want, can we trust her? And my players know this Raven Queen is all about like harvesting memories and shit like that anyway. So I decided, okay, it's a little bit meta, but like they know what they're getting into. We ended up pulling them all in to relive a bunch of memories, both from their player characters past, as well as recapping all the major shit that's happened in our campaign up until this point. I was going to have some mechanics in there for if they were trying to resist, they're going to be competing wills with, a quasi godlike character. I didn't want to punish them for that, but at the same time, I was going to make them roll for it, and I needed to have a backup plan if somebody rolled a 1. So I was experimenting with the idea of, well, this Raven Queen figure steals memories, and what would be the ethics of making a player forget about something that would have been potentially important to the motivation and stuff for their character. Didn't happen, but what did happen that I kind of came up with on the fly, and I wish I'd done it earlier as we were doing this review, is every time the scene changed, I let everybody do a wisdom save so that they could, basically their character would be in on what's going on, right? Rather than just reliving these moments as if you're reliving them, you become more of an active observer of these moments that you're reliving. And what that allowed me to do with them is, as we were recapping this old stuff that had happened, they could kind of look at it through a new lens and perform some anything from like perception and insight type checks as these situations were being recounted, so that they could potentially like mine new information out of this old content.
Right. That's great.
Which was a lot of fun. It worked really, really well. They tried not to, like, it could have bogged down.
Yeah.
You know, it could have been like, let's hyper analyze every little thing, and my players were really good about not doing that. But there was, a whole bunch of things where they were oblivious, or they just didn't roll well enough to really understand what was going on in certain situations, or certain figures that, their motivations became more clear later, so they could reanalyze these situations with a little bit of hindsight, and look what sort of visual cues or personality cues or whatever to look for. Um, and it was a lot of fun. So much fun that it bogged down enough that we actually didn't get through the full campaign recap up to this point.
Oh, wow.
Which was fine. We ended up doing, I usually keep my sessions with these guys at about 3 hours, maybe 3:15, because we play late. One of them's already in Great Britain, so she's playing in like, the wee hours of the morning.
Wow.
And the rest of us are professionals too, right? So try not to push into like 10:30, 11 o'clock. But we ended up calling this session at like 11:15, almost 11:30. At a convenient spot where I mentioned that I'd sort of whisked them away from the world that we were playing in, which is the one that I kicked off the campaign with our group, and um, pulled them into the Feywilds and the Shadowfell, kind of related to some of the other character backstory stuff. And we've been in that for like months and months and months now. A couple of major kind of mini arcs in there, but most of that material was fresh enough that we really didn't need to recap it. It was sort of that old world stuff that's kind of related to this, that there was a lot of, oh, I forgot that happened, or oh, that's, wasn't it hilarious? Like we have our own sort of inside jokes, like the Meepo thing with our group, right?
Yep.
Where we can just get a good laugh about it over and over and over again. And there were some things that all of us had kind of quasi forgotten that we brought up. Like in those scenes, we took a pause, and I gave the players an opportunity, like out of character, to just talk about what was important for their character in this scene.
Right.
What resonated with you? How did it change your motivations? How did it make you feel? So that all of our players, by the time we got to the end of it, would get a good feel for like, hey, not only do I now remember what was important to me and what I wanted to do in character, but these people that I've been with for a while, I remember what their goals are too. And as it turns out, in reanalyzing the situation, they managed to maybe even shift some of their goals now that they have new information that they didn't have before. So
Well, that's
it's good.
cool. It's nice to get a look at uh, what the other characters are going after, because a lot of times, like I know for me specifically, a lot of times like I'll be playing and it's like, okay, well I gotta really think about what my character wants to do here, because
Mhm.
they're quite often I play characters who are different from me, right? It was actually a little bit easier in your campaign because I was basically playing me if I had the ability to do those things. But in a
And
lot
we're a
of
space cat pirate.
yeah, it's me. It's who I am.
Yeah. I mean, look at you.
Yeah. Ow.
Feline grace. Like that's the number one thing I think of when I think of you.
Listen, I can fall off a tree as easily as any cat. Um, yeah, physically not so much, but like character motivation wise, a lot of times it's so much. So you spend so much time trying to figure out, okay, like what would my character do in this situation? That you don't often worry about, like, well, what are the other players here want. So it's nice to get a little bit of a recap and hear them like speak candidly about like what is your character actually about.
Mhm.
So yeah, that's one of the things that I want to push a little bit when we launch our thing is to have people have some kind of a motivation, whatever it is.
Mhm.
Right. And I'm going to leave that up to the players, right? Like, why are you here? Like, what is it that you want out of the world? You know, in light of the sort of archetype of personality that I've asked you to fulfill. In addition to that, like, what are you like in the context of that? Why do you want to kill the dragon and steal the princess, or kill the princess and steal the dragon? Whichever, whichever floats your boat.
Are you doing the horny bard archetype for any of us?
No, no one gets to be horny bard.
Mm.
Um, I'm going to in my online in my in-person group, I am going to ask that someone play a bard type of character, not
Yeah.
necessarily the horny bard. Um, I think that's overplayed a little bit. In
I got to stop and give a shout out to a particular player in my Tuesday night group. I don't actually shout out my players well enough. This is Vicky, who played the big Chef Kitty character in the one shot that we did. She plays a bard that is the most atypical bard, like awkward, like interesting backstory, has been put through some shit, but is not the type of bard that you would think of when you think of playing a D&D bard. A little bit of music background, a little bit of a like worked in a well, let's just call the character, male character, was a prostitute for a while, just getting by, and worked in a brothel, has been trying to make good out of their life, but no charisma in the way she role plays the character at all. So it's not seduce the dragon, seduce the princess, whatever. I've actually put their character in socially awkward situations because sometimes that's the best part of our campaign. And one of the things that I set this character up with is I basically granted them a magical weapon related to the relationship that they have with the patron. It's actually grown quite serious. They kissed for the first time last session. Ooh. Anyway, um, her patron's based on the Arthurian Lady of the Lake. There's actually a fourth edition warlock patron, the Lady of White Well character that I've loosely based some of this stuff on. Basically gave her a lightsaber. I reskinned the Sunblade from Curse of Strahd. But being a sentient weapon, the setup was this woman's tied to this lake, so you can't actually talk to her when you're away from her. Here's a weapon that's going to allow you to do it, but you have to communicate through this weapon through song. And she spent a couple weeks, I guess, figuring out what the shit was going to be that she was going to do, and badly sung "Smooth" by Rob Thomas Santana. Just like
Okay.
this is the song that I'm going to be establishing as sort of like the trigger song so that I can interact with this sentient blade thing. Again, like the not what you would a bard would normally do, right? It would just turned into a funny thing. So shout out Vicky. Trip $10, the name of her character. Man with no luck. You're an awesome
Oh,
bard.
yeah. You know what? I like bards. They're the most versatile characters that you can role play. It's kind of sad that they get pigeonholed into that one sort of trope where this is what bards are like. They have sex with everything. And not necessarily.
Yeah, which is kind of funny because like the mental image that we have for bards outside of D&D, like you play D&D bards as if they're rock stars, right? But when you think of what they actually are, like
They're band
minstrels
nerds.
and like, yeah, they're
Yep.
they're one time at band camp.
Yeah. No, I've never been to band camp, but I assume it's wild. Dungeons and Dragons
That's our
begins
tabletop for the
again.
week.
Yeah, winter. I like winter. Winter is good for Dungeons and Dragons.
I did hear from Ian this week. He went radio silent for, I don't know, a week and a half on me. I was a little bit worried about him. I know he's back from Europe. He's enjoying the California life. I think he had some family down. Poor guy.
Oh,
So much to worry about. But he did make some pod bag submissions for us. So let's get into one of them.
You've got mail.
There's a small collection of sounds and music that permeate my brain from old school games. The most recent one that's come up and stuck around is when Shane, sent him a Plebs Are Needed MP3 from Caesar 2. This is now my new email notification sound for work emails. Do you have any retro sounds or bits of music that seem to crop up decades later?
Start the game already.
I think I actually, because I don't know that I've actually done this with you and put you through the ringer, but when we were doing the retro replay thing, I built that little stinger. I'm just going to play it now.
I used to be an adventurer like you.
Stay a while and listen.
Now there's the obvious Easter egg sounds in there. Deckard Cain, Skyrim dude. Can you pick the two other ones?
No, can't. I like there's some vague recognition of stuff in there, but there's nothing else that stands out to me. What am I missing?
Well, there's the Super Mario punch coin sound.
Yep.
But the one that I figured you'd probably miss was the Half-Life crowbar.
Yeah.
It's the first thunk that you hear there, clank.
I didn't play a lot of Half-Life.
Yeah.
When Half-Life was Half-Life 2 is the one that when it came out, I didn't have a computer that I could play that on. Second. I didn't play a lot of it. All of the sounds from when we're waiting for you to set up the server and waiting for people to synchronize on the internet.
Yeah, Age of Empires is a big one for us. And funny enough, so Tanya played the game a little bit, but not a lot. She's into Civilization and stuff a little bit more. The kids, I got playing Age of Empires a little bit, but she spent enough time with me playing it in the room with her that not just the taunt sounds, like the, start the game already, or monk, I need a monk.
Yeah.
Wololo.
That's one of the sounds that actually comes up in the game
Yeah.
when you I forget which race it is or which civilization, but when you click on your dudes. Oh, another one that sticks out to me is stop touching me. My tummy feels funny.
Zug zug.
Yeah.
But Age of Empires has enough sound cues in it that aren't taunts, like the sounds when a villager is created at the town center, or when archers are created, or something like that. That we'll go through just random days where we'll hear something on the radio, or we'll be in a restaurant, and like some sound happens off in the distance, and we'll look at each other, and she'll say, "That was an Age of Empires sound."
Yeah. Yep.
Lemmings. She's awesome that way.
Oh my god! Did you ever play Lemmings? I had Lemmings for the Amiga. It was much nicer than the P60 or the C64 or PC version. And there's a bunch of sounds in there that like crop up in my brain.
Here's the situation though. When I played Lemmings, it wasn't on an Amiga. It was on oh god, it must have been it might have been a PC Junior or an AT machine with only the PC speaker. Didn't even have an ad lib card in it to handle like music. It was just the PC speaker.
Oh.
So I didn't get a lot of that shit.
Ding.
You know which ones get me a lot though that I think of honestly, like just play them in my head in the middle of a day, is the Ghost Recon stuff. We've already talked about it today, but there's certain sounds, the friendly fire sounds, of course, like the radio chittering, Murphy. These particular sound of certain weapons, like the grenade launcher on the
Thunk.
yep,
BFN
the
2000.
OICW, the MM1 and the FN 2000, and then the sound of grenades exploding.
Yep.
Like it's just a
Crunch.
particular sound that like I'll hear it in a movie or something that's very close, and I'm like,
Yep. I mean, they're probably pulling from the same sound samples.
oh, I'm sure they are. Another shout out, not a parting gift. We've talked about H Bomber Guy in the past. There's a video that he did that spiraled into like a 3 or 4 hour video. It started with the Roblox oof sound, which had previously come from
Divinity something, DSX, some Cupid game.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of the name of it. Not Divinity, but yes, you're talking about the right game.
Yeah, because I watched
Messiah?
that.
No.
Might have been Messiah.
Anyway, an old game that a sound engineer had worked on, and it spiraled into an examination of this one like industry vet's compulsive lying, and just it was like diving deep into the psyche of Donald Trump, only it was not Donald Trump, it was somebody else.
Very
and it
similar.
is one of the most like entertaining train wrecks I've watched in a long time.
It's so blatantly bad. I've mentioned before. Again, we I think it was last week or maybe the previous episode that my parting gift was Behind the Bastards, and I'm catching up on however many thousands of hours of it there is, because I literally we talked about before how I can't listen to podcasts while I'm working. I've started listening to this podcast while I work because it's like I have to consume this. Like I need to know these things. And the one that they're doing right now is Infowars guy, right? And it's the first one that is, because normally it's like they do an hour or an hour and a half, and sometimes there's enough material that they're like, okay, well, there's a part 2. This has 3 parts, and it's funny because they went back and got a lot of his stuff from like when he was on public radio, right? And it was very obvious that he was doing a bit. And then it just spiraled out until now. I'm like, he's the character has subsumed him, I think. Anyway, but it's interesting to see how much similarity there is between people who get just that kind of behavior.
Yeah.
On our lighthearted video game podcast.
I think I might need to build a soundboard. Like I got all these stingers that we play in here, but thinking about this question for me, and I might need to work some of those sounds just into mid conversation.
Yeah, you should look up a guy. He's got some of his routines are on YouTube. Hospital Radio. It's difficult to describe, but if you're interested in people using soundboards, Hospital Radio.
Yeah.
It's you will go pee before you start listening, because otherwise your underwear are going to get wet. That funny.
Well, I'll have to check it out. It's not your official parting gift, but let's get into that.
And I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.
Anybody want a peanut?
So, parting gift. This is old. I first found this when we were working at the call center. It is a website called Grog's Animated Knots, where he's got all kinds of knots and an animation to show you the various steps of how they work. My favorite is the Alpine Butterfly. I've used them a lot. Things. Learn how to tie some knots, or just like looking at knots, or you're a knot enthusiast. This is
Not enthusiast. Is that a thing?
I think so. I mean, I enjoy the idea of constructing a knot. Like I can I get joy out of looking at a well-constructed knot, and they're useful, right? Like I tie knots and things all the
Oh
time.
yeah, super super useful. I just the idea that people look at, I think of like sommeliers with wine, or people that like their whiskeys or something, like the idea of just taking in a knot, and experiencing what it has to offer is just an immensely funny visual for me.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Like I understand that you can look at it through an engineering lens and be like, this knot is incredibly clever. Now let me tell you why. Because when this does this, this does this, tension's going to happen here, increased friction here. Like I get looking at a knot from that angle
yeah.
and appreciating a knot, but the idea of a knot enthusiast is just completely different than that for me.
Yeah. Here's a museum that we're going to. We're going to an exhibition of knots, and there's going to be wine and cheese, and everybody's going to be wearing black turtlenecks. Yeah, and speaking
Like you get those
pretentiously.
people that in an art gallery that are just standing in front of a painting for hours, just taking it in, trying to let the emotional experience. But just picture like a really good like sailor's knot, you
Yep.
know, fucking Berkeley knot up on the wall, and everybody just kind of standing around.
Just nodding and going, "Oh, the expression." Yeah. No, it's a funny visual. I like it. That's
I've never heard of this Grog's animated knots.
really. Oh, you
Yeah,
should go check it out. Like it's very. There's a lot of things where I have just sort of scrolling through and seeing like how do these like, oh, what's that? What's that? What's that? How does this work?
I think I've finally come to the conclusion that back in those days, you were a selfish asshole. I mean,
I
there was an abundance of evidence, and you're perfectly forthcoming about it. But I'm discovering all of these things that you're like, oh, this is from back in the day when you and I first met, when we were actually like friends on the regular. We would see each other almost every day, and you've just chosen not to share any of this shit with me.
I assumed that you knew. Like we were both like, well, it's I suppose it's not true. I was working the overnight shift a lot, so I was surfing the internet a ton, and
I
to
was
be
always overnight.
yeah.
You mentioned battle chess. I mean, we would sit there playing chess in the middle of their shift. I don't think you ever beat me, but
I'm pretty sure I did.
I'm pretty
I
sure you didn't.
I think we need to have some rematches now.
All right, we're gonna have to do that on our stream. There's some exciting gameplay for the audience.
Oh yeah.
Chess.
Yep. Yeah. Did you know that they televise the World Chess Championships like in real time? Like I get that it could be like it's interesting to watch brilliant minds work, but can you imagine tuning in to like 4 hours of a chess game? And here's an interesting
Dude,
rule in
dude, you think
competitive.
that's insane? Watch them play Go. Like when people are playing Go, it's like darts. Like where you get the passionate audience. It's okay, it's not quite that colorful, but like
Yeah.
it's like standing around looking at a wall with knots on it. Like it's
Yeah, it's why are we watching this? Why are you listening to us? It's at least as entertaining. There's an interesting rule in competitive chess that I didn't know about that if you because they've got the chess clocks and they go with time. If you run out of time and nobody has won, black wins.
I didn't know
And
that.
I learned that like today. Somebody was making a joke about the chess tournament. They had some kind of, you know, sort of blow up thing where it's like, oh, you got to do it on super quick time, and they're going, tick 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 tick, almost like speed chess. Because if somebody runs out of time and there's no winner, apparently black wins. I don't know. I might be wrong. Fair. I'm never going to get to the grandmaster level, so it doesn't matter.
No, you're
Yeah.
not.
No, I'm not. I'm going to kick your ass though.
No, no, you're not. I actually haven't played chess in forever, honestly.
Neither
I
have
mean,
I.
it's one of those games that like it's probably easier than jumping back on a bike, especially for somebody like me on a bike.
Oh, yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
And I do actually ride my bike around. It's frightening how tall a bike is when you're grown up. It's like this is a long way off the ground. If I fall over, this is gonna hurt.
Yeah. Yeah. Same bike 30 years ago, you'd be like, I can take it out some sweet jumps.
maybe 40 years ago. But yeah.
Well, my dude, I think that's our show. It's been good talking to you.
Indeed.
If you happen to be listening to this show, thanks for listening. We'd love to hear from you. Maybe check out our streams. If not, if you're just a connoisseur of the audio formats, then we'd love to hear from you another way. You can comment on our YouTube channel, or if you'd like to send us an email, podcast or podbag at nerdingundertheinfluence.com. We're wide open for listener submitted parting gifts, podbag suggestions. You want to fire your questions at us, we would be happy to answer them. And
Tell
until
us how
next
badly
time,
we suck.
you suck so bad, man.
Well, I haven't had a lot of practice.